Warning. This episode contains topics of discussion that may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
What's going on, everybody?
Ladies and ladies. How's everyone doing? I know.
You're waiting for a response as if somebody... Actually, you know what? All right, let's do this, okay?
Yeah.
How are you doing today? I hope we just gave you enough time to answer.
Yeah,
Because
I hope things are going good.
Yeah,
because
here at Shooting the Shit, we really want to make sure that our viewers are doing well. Because, like we say, this is a podcast for best friends, by best friends. So, you know what? All of our viewers, all of our listeners, you're all our best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we mean that from the bottom of our heart. Mm-hmm. But today's special guest is a very, very interesting fellow.
Oh my God.
By the name, he's been on the podcast before. He made a brief appearance in our New York episode.
That got quickly canceled.
No.
I mean, it premiered.
It was valid. It was
it-
totally valid.
Yeah. It's fine. But you know him. You love him, Mr. Bradley Robinson.
Brad Robinson.
Thank you.
And we also have standing in for a couple minutes for this episode is our very own Joshua True,
Hey,
the
what's going on?
dinosaur expert.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yes,
I
sir.
was doing laundry down the hall, so I just decided pop in. I've come to do two things. One is call Brad my father. Don't run the numbers on our ages. They won't add up, but he is my dad.
Those numbers don't math, bro.
That math ain't mathin'.
And I've also come to tell a dinosaur fact when
Oh,
time
yeah.
permits. When time permits.
No, yeah.
Oh,
I'm down for a dinosaur fact to kick us off.
Dinosaur fact, please.
I guess it's a 2-for-1 today.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
So, let me make sure I have the name. So, I've come to tell you the biggest and the smallest dinosaurs.
Yeah.
The biggest dinosaur is a sauropod. Long neck dinosaur.
Like Nessie?
Yeah, but on land.
Okay.
His name is Argentinosaurus. I think I mentioned his bones
His
last
femur,
time.
right?
Yeah.
because he got a big bone. He's got the biggest bone because he's got the biggest body at 121 to 131 feet long.
Wow.
That's insane.
And then the smallest dinosaur. Let me ensure I have the name correct because it's a funny little guy. Aculudentavis.
Wow. One more time.
Aculudentavis.
What was it?
It is a little lizard, little feathered lizard. They thought it was a bird at first, but looked into it deeper, and it's actually a lizard. They found it trapped in amber, of all things.
They
and
really Jurassic Park that shit.
Yeah, and it was small. It was like, it was half an inch,
Wow.
Damn.
half an inch in size. It's a little guy. You can grip him
Yeah.
like a squeaky toy. So that's dinosaur facts with Josh.
Damn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Appreciate it. And I'm just gonna be
Josh.
here to admire my father now.
Oh, all right. Well,
Very well.
Cool.
All
So
right.
moving on to Brad. Brad
boy.
is actually for those of you who are listening. We're recording this on Saturday, but
the day
yesterday,
after.
yesterday was in fact Veterans Day. And we wanted to get Brad in on an episode, not only because we just want to have Brad in on an episode,
Because there's so much to talk about.
because there's so much to talk about.
Strap in, folks.
Yeah, having him on the New York episode was not nearly enough for the time that Brad can provide for us talking about his experiences. So we wanted to have Brad on, and he could let us know some stories, some tips, tricks on life. Because God knows we have no idea what the fuck we're doing.
Yeah, I got.
Well, that's the key. Nobody does.
Yeah.
We just pretend we do.
Right, exactly.
You've been around the block a few more times than we have.
Yeah.
A couple of blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The world.
We often
Yeah.
take your advice.
Blocks around the world.
Right.
But not only is Brad a veteran, but he is also a theater major with us here at Dean.
Yes.
Acting specifically.
Yeah.
And he is a phenomenal actor.
Thank you.
I've seen some of his work.
You
And
did great in Radium Girls our
Yeah.
freshman year.
That was freshman year.
That was the
That's
first
crazy.
show we were a part of.
Radium Girls, freshman year. Jesus,
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe that.
With how much of a debacle that was, I was
Yeah.
surprised. And
It looked great though.
And the best part about that was they were like, "You're nominated for the Irene Ryan."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Is that like a little trophy or something?" Like I was like, "Is this like baseball? Do I get to put something on my shelf? Like I won the Irene." Like I was like, "That's cute," and they were like, "You got to prepare," and I was like,
"You gotta get more."
"What do you mean prepare?"
Monologue, songs.
And they were like, "No, you're going to a competition now," and I was like, No, that's not what I wanted.
No, thanks.
No, but it was a good experience. But it was funny because
Did you
everyone's.
actually get to go?
I did, yeah. That was
Yeah,
right before
right
the
before
COVID shutdown, so
Yeah.
we actually went, and it was a great
That's right,
time.
A bunch of you went.
Yeah.
That year, yeah.
Noah's already sweating buckets.
Yeah, we had to send in our monologues by the 15th of this month, and it is the 12th. So this is, if you're listening to this and you're at Dean College and you're nominated for KCACTF Irene Ryans, you have to send in your monologues so that we can get them recorded before January.
And this is gonna post. This is gonna post on the 15th. Yes.
Oh, wait, no.
No.
14th.
The 14th. Okay.
14th.
So
You'll have a
this
day.
will
You
be
have
your
less
final
than a day.
warning.
You have less than a day to
Please,
figure
your
it
last
out.
reminder.
I mean, that's per Dean regulation though. Like, give you a day to get ready. So
Yeah, I mean it's fine. It is what it is.
it'd be alright.
We work through it.
Mhm.
But yeah, so enough us talking. Let's talk about you, Brad.
Oh,
So
no.
you've done I'm gonna just constantly say it. You've done so much with your life, and you're not even like old. Like
No, he's not.
you're only like a couple years older than us, and you've done like so much with your life. It's honestly like super inspiring because there are people who are well older than us and haven't even done a quarter of what you've been able to do, which is really, really cool, and I have so much respect for you.
Well, I appreciate that. It does. It means a lot. I never intended for my life to be this chaotic.
Who does?
Or this full of stuff. And you guys won't either. And I promise you, as you go through life, you're gonna look
No
back
idea.
and be like, I've done so much shit. It's insane. But you never, when you're in it, when you're doing it, you don't think of it as like major contributing factors to your life. It's just like another day.
Yep.
And it's the compounding of all those little days that make like this crazy adventure. But I would say like the outlook that kind of led me to having such like an insane, like, I have so many stories, was just always saying yes to opportunities, even if I didn't want to do it, even if it felt dumb, or even if it was an opportunity that was almost like felt like a punishment. Like in the military, there was always like, you get voluntold to do things.
Oh yeah.
Or they-
God, I
Oh,
hate
yeah.
being voluntold.
Yep,
to do things.
you get voluntold to do things all the time, or they're like, hey, we need like 3 bodies.
Yeah.
And it's like 3 people raise your hand right now, and everyone's like, I don't know what this is for,
Yeah.
so I don't. And I learned early on that like if you always raise your hand for the shitty stuff, you're gonna get all the great stuff too.
Really.
So I think that's just like a factor of life, is like if you're not willing to go through the shit,
Oh yeah.
you're never gonna see the rewards of anything, and you're never gonna really like amount to much or have good stories.
Yeah.
Because I remember being like, okay, we have to go rebuild the gym. And we had to like restack the weights from one end of the gym to the other, and that's a lot.
When was this?
On a military, this was in Japan,
No shit.
and it was on the military base, and the military bases in Japan are like very like self-sustaining, so the gym there was massive. It was like a 4-story gym.
Wow.
So we had to completely like renovate the gym and paint it and everything else as like a working party, and it sucked. Like it was exhausting.
It a gym that it was for you guys, or
It was for us, but it was also for like the families that are stationed there,
okay.
because you got to remember, like, your whole family is going with you when you deploy to
Yeah.
Japan. That's why they don't like to send too many families, because
Yeah.
it's expensive. But no, the gym was crazy. But like in doing that, I met up with like 3 people that were like professional bodybuilders.
No shit.
Yep.
And I was always like a smaller guy. When I was younger, I was like trying to put on weight, and I could never put on weight. I was just one of those people. And I had had some luck and gotten somewhere, but never to the point of like professional bodybuilding level or whatever the case is, you know. And in revamping this gym, I got in with them and connected with them, and they got me into it and got me certified as a personal trainer and got me in. And that was kind of the start of my like fitness career. And I started making a lot of money doing that kind of stuff and working with them and having like all kinds of like Japanese clientele that were coming in.
Yeah, so not
And-
only were you doing this, but you were also doing it in Japan.
Yeah.
Where you didn't speak the language.
Well, eventually I did, but
I was
yeah.
gonna say, how's your Japanese right now?
It's squishy. I know a little still, so.
I'm doing Japanese on Duolingo right
Yeah.
now.
Duolingo.
Yeah, I'm not doing so hot.
Listen.
Ethan, can you count to 5?
Yeah, ichi, ni, san, yon. I forgot 5.
Go. It is go.
Is it go?
Yeah.
I know 6 is Roku.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm doing Japanese. I'm doing High Valyrian from Game of Thrones. What am I doing wrong?
I'm gonna start learning.
He's trying to speak
Klingon.
to dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But listen, here's the secret. I am too. And I lived there, and I already forgot everything. So it was just the fact that like I moved from country to country, and every country I went to, they'd be like, "You need to know the local language," and I'd be like, "Okay, all right." And there's like only so much room in your brain for that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So every
And
country I
the
go
older
to,
you
they'd
get-
be like,
The
"Learn
storage
this
in
one."
our brain is overloading.
Yep.
So
What's your favorite country that you've been to?
it's Japan.
Japan.
It's Japan.
Yeah, it's just such a beautiful. I mean, it's a little expensive there now,
Yeah.
but it's just they've done so well, I think, in maintaining a balance with nature and
Oh yeah.
you know infrastructure.
Modernism.
Yeah, like building infrastructure to make sure that people have all the technological amenities they need, but also having like the fact that 80% of the country is preserved as like natural
Yeah.
habitat that can't be built on. That's 80% of the country,
That's
Yeah.
so.
and
good.
that's like a landmass that's about the size of California.
Mhm.
That has like
It's
the
protected?
population of like multiple millions.
Yeah.
That like, and they live off of 20% of the land. It's insane when you think about it because
Wow.
they build up, not out.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Oh.
so
Yeah.
and like,
God damn.
and the local people.
We're the westward expansion assholes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
We totally are.
Holy
Yes, we
shit!
are.
You're so right. They build up.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's why their buildings are so. We suck. We suck. We're so bad.
But I will say this, and it's like, Japan is a land of cliches.
Really?
Like
Oh, how
name a cliche that you have about like Japanese culture that you've seen in a movie or that you've seen in like a car, even like anime.
Oh. An easy one. There's a lot of people wearing robes and kimonos. Even in like modern day anime, for some reason, there's like a lot of depiction of like, you know, more ancient attire.
And that is still very valid because they hold on to tradition.
Oh yeah.
So like if you go to like the richer families, like the richer the communities get,
Yeah.
the more like old traditional formal they are.
Yeah.
So the architecture is still very old traditional. They still have like those old Japanese like samurai houses and
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah.
shogun houses.
Oh, those
They're
are
so
cool.
cool. They're so cool.
I want to go to Japan so bad, dude. I want to try the food.
But like
The food must have been fucking crazy.
yeah, the food was fire. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think I had a single crappy meal when I
Yeah.
was in Japan. And that was even like the street food. If you go to McDonald's there, it takes them like 15 minutes to get you your McDonald's meal because they cook it fresh in front of it. It's like, or if you go to Subway, all the sauces, the mayonnaise is made from scratch that morning. Like
Oh man.
that's how their Subway is. So I got a
That's
Subway sandwich and I
crazy.
bit it and I literally cried because it was so good.
Josh is booking a flight right now, guys. He loves Subway.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. What's the
but,
worst country that you've been to?
Ooh. Good question.
You probably won't like this.
Was it the Philippines?
It was the Philippines.
God damn it!
Oh,
And
But
it's-
I'm curious as to why. I'm curious
Right,
as to why, 'cause I think
here's
I
the
know
why. And it's because the country is so dependent on their black market and the criminalization of their industry is so set in stone that like human trafficking and drug trafficking is like the bedrock of their economy.
Whoa.
So the government just turns a blind eye and doesn't do anything about it because it is the primary income for their society.
That's I never knew.
In
this.
regards to like the Asian countries, the Philippines is like their third world country.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Like
Got
That's
it.
why there's always like the equivalency of like, you know, like stand-up comedians will use like, hey, it's like I think there is like a Filipino stand-up comedian.
Joe
He,
Coy.
Joe Coy.
yep,
He's fucking awesome.
and
Dude, I
he
love
compares
Joe Coy.
himself to Mexicans.
Yep.
Yep.
For the Americas.
That is a hilarious fucking
Yeah.
bit.
Because it's true.
True.
Nobody thinks about it that way,
It's
but
true.
it's
We were fucking invaded by the Spanish
Yep.
for centuries, and that's why we all have Spanish last names. It's 'cause
it is.
They left their seed and their last names
Yep.
with our people. So that's
You got
why-
you got
that's
two
why-
things:
Yeah.
the looks
Yep.
and the last
And
name.
the
You-
last name.
you didn't get the height,
Lazaro?
though.
That's not
That's
Filipino,
not
dude.
Filipino.
That's fucking Spanish.
And if you look at Tagalog, which is one of their 36 languages, by the way,
They speak 36 languages.
they speak 36 languages, and only what is it like 20-something% of the country actually speaks Tagalog.
Yeah.
So it's the primary language of the country, and only like a fifth of the country speaks it.
How do they?
Right.
How
That was my question
how
when I
do
went
they-
there. But
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
how do they communicate
the
across
languages
the
are
country?
similar enough to where I think they can understand each other, and they do have like
Are
a
they all
monetary
sister
system, and
languages?
kind of.
Okay.
So they're similar, but they're all like if you go into like the really rural areas, it's like you're going to like tribes that still speak like their
Gotcha.
tribal
Gotcha.
languages. So it's still broken up.
So they expect you to learn a language when you go to the country. Which one did you learn? Did you learn the majority?
You learn the major one. So I learned Tagalog. And if you ask me to start spitting out Tagalog, I'm gonna. No.
I wasn't gonna ask you then.
I remember like the ones that I wanted to learn, which is like napakaganda mo, which is like you're beautiful. So the ones that kind of get you what you want when you're out in town, But yeah, like
Tell me I'm
beers
beautiful in
and
Tagalog.
they get you beer and they get you food. Yeah, those things. But
yeah. So I'm looking at the Philippines right now, and the way that the languages are split up, it's by like region.
it is. It's regional,
And
so it's like
it's-
very territorial to
Yeah.
like the language.
My family's from Manila, so
Mm.
their main language was Tagalog.
Yep.
But they also knew like Spanish.
Yeah,
They
and
knew,
it's
they knew some like Arabic. and stuff.
Tagalog
Whoa.
has a lot of Spanish influence.
Yeah.
Like they have the word puta, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not a cuss word. I
Yeah.
think it's like a dessert.
Yeah.
So it's
Something like that.
it's like a tasty.
Dad, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I'm dishonoring our Filipino heritage. I wanted to learn Tagalog so bad, but I was young.
It's
when
such
my
a hard
grandparents
language
passed
to learn,
away.
too.
I mean, my grandfather only passed away last year, but when my Lola passed away, which is grandmother in Tagalog,
Mm.
like I wanted to learn so bad, but I was in 8th grade. I was young, so I couldn't really find the time to. But yeah, Filipino
Listen.
culture is crazy.
Listen, I just started recently learning Gaelic, which is Gaelic.
Yep.
Gaelic, yep.
For Irish, and it's a dead language. And meaning like they don't even teach it in Ireland
Yeah.
anymore. It's only taught from like parent
Yeah.
to child kind of thing. But I started recently learning it because my grandmother and grandfathers, like all four of them, are from Ireland.
Mm.
So I'm like more of an immigrant than most
Yeah.
people that are considered immigrants.
Yeah.
But like I didn't understand what my grandparents were like. My grandmother would yell at me and call me cuss
Yeah.
words because I'd call her out for having like a flask of whiskey in church, and I'd be like, "You can't do that," and she'd like get all angry and call me cuss words in Gaelic, and I'd be like, "What's Grandma saying?" And my dad would be like, "Don't worry about it." But I wanted to kind of reconnect with my culture,
Yeah.
so I've just recently, over the last like 5 years, started taking like Gaelic and trying to like learn more about
Yeah.
it. And now I know kind of what she was calling me. It's a little rude, but
You use Duolingo
She-
too?
I do. I used to use
Yes.
Rosetta Stones, but it just Rosetta Stone got too monetized, and it's like
Yeah.
crazy
Yep.
expensive now.
Mhm.
At least Duolingo, you can do it free. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
ads and like
Yeah.
some
And-
of the nitpicky
And
stuff.
Duolingo is the same kind of structure as Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
So
Oh, cool.
even though Rosetta Stone kind of like broke the mold on that one of
Yeah.
like immersion type
Yep.
like teaching, other things do it just as well now. So you
Yeah.
don't have to pay that thing, and with like technology advancing, like it's so easy to find cheaper options.
Yeah.
So it's like always look out there for like if you find something you're like this is great but it's expensive, just keep looking. You'll find something that's the exact same thing that's just
Yeah.
like an off brand.
Exactly.
It's like the Walmart of Rosetta Stones. You know?
Duolingo is the Walmart to Rosetta Stone's.
it's
Target.
the great value.
Yeah. So, in regards to your military experience, when did you start in the military?
I started when I was 17.
17.
I was with the 90s. It was probably 91 or 92. It was like right after I was born. They switched the regulation that said you can't graduate if you're under 18.
Oh, okay.
So they switched it so like you couldn't go into kindergarten until you were a certain age.
Oh, okay.
With me,
that's when they broke up the years.
Yes.
The year barriers. Yeah.
yeah, because for me it was like the year you were born. It wasn't when in the year.
Right.
So
now,
they weren't.
Yeah. Now it's
you know,
it's even more in depth with like.
Yeah.
You know, if you were born in the beginning of September or in the end of September, you're either a junior in college right now or a senior. In
Right,
college.
and I was in October, so it was like I went in and I think I was the second youngest in my grade. There was one other person that was younger, and she ended up like dropping out anyways, so it didn't matter. But no, I was the youngest in my grade, and I could have graduated early. I just didn't want to because I didn't have any plans other than going into the military.
Yeah.
So it was like, why would I graduate high school early? You know what
Right.
I mean, I didn't even take the SATs. I just took the tests for the military, and I got a 91 out of 100, and they were like, you can do whatever you want.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah, the average score on those is probably about like a 60 something, and I got
Holy shit, dude.
a 91, and they were like, who are you? And I was like, nah, I just and they were like, what do you want to do?
Get
Like,
this Bruce Banner motherfucker.
Yeah.
they were like, you can
in
do
the
any
labs.
job you want. You want intel, you want counter intel, you want linguists. What do you want? And I was like, I want to be infantry. And they were like, no.
Not with that beautiful mind.
and they were like, we can't do that to this world. No. And then my parents were like, that's not happening because if you're under 18, your parents have to sign a waiver saying that you're allowed to go in.
Wow.
And my dad was like, I don't care. But like my mom was like, you're not going off and like being infantry and going to die and blah blah blah, because she was all emotional about it. And because this is like, this is like the generation that like 9/11 happened. I was 11 when 9/11 happened, so it was like very real even for me.
Yeah. What year were you born?
I was born in 1990 at the end of that.
1990.
So it was like the very beginning of the
There's
90s.
a whole 10, 11
Yeah.
years younger
There's
than
a-
both
So
of us.
2001, you were 11.
A whole decade.
There's
So
a decadence
then-
between us.
And then 7 years after that.
Yeah, I was born in 2001.
So that's like your generation looks at it as like this may have happened in my lifetime, but I might have been born from
We don't
like
we
during
don't
it.
know what it was.
But
Oh, yeah,
that's
no.
that's like the
Like,
first
it's
time the
just- to
Twin
us, it's
Towers
nothing.
got hit with me. Like or I think that even might have been like right before I was born.
When you gained consciousness.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like I was still a primordial ooze in my dad's nutsack.
Oh.
So
cut that.
so, but that's like when it was bombed the first time. And the Twin Towers were bombed the first time back in I think it was the late 80s.
I
want to say.
always forget about
That
that.
happened?
Yes.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a-
there was a
Yeah.
first attack.
they
Before 9/11.
drove. I think they drove vans down into the sub
Oh,
parking
that's
basement.
It was-
right.
I thought it was someone with a vest, and the vest didn't go off.
There was multiple like attempts,
Oh my god!
but because you have to look at what it symbolized. It was the World Trade Centers,
Yeah.
so it's the world's market
Yep.
in New
Yeah.
York City. So it's like the most powerful country in the world, and the world's market being in their one of their
Yep.
most powerful cities.
Wow.
So it's like a symbol of like world uniting,
Yeah.
like
That's
Western
insane.
world kind of controlling the monetary value of the world.
Yeah.
And we had it in our country. So it was a big symbol of money, and that's why it always get attacked, because people saw the U.S. as a dollar sign.
Wow.
And it's still seen that way,
that's
but like
crazy.
that
Yeah.
was like the symbolism of those towers was like, this is the U.S.'s like international money symbol. So that's why they always attacked
I
it,
didn't
and
even
then
consider that.
yeah, that's why it always get attacked. But like when like I still remember the 9/11 attacks like vividly. That's like one of the reasons why I went in and everything else. So it was real for me, and it was in a generation where like we got attacked, and there was like a meaning to me going into the military. Nowadays, there's really no reason to like for people to join. Like if you're like, oh, I want to join because I just want to do my service,
Yeah.
that works. But it's not like there's like a definitive fight that you're
Yeah.
going to fight. That's not, the war's over. So
Yeah.
Mm.
well.
The trend keeps moving upward
In a
not
more
downward,
peaceful manner.
yeah.
And trust me, nobody wants that more than I do. It's
Yeah.
I feel like once you've experienced that lot in life, and you have a way greater appreciation for peace.
Yeah.
And for the little things in life. It makes you want peace more.
Yeah.
When you've lived in fighting for it, or fighting,
of
like
course.
in any
Yeah.
kind of like wars.
I agree with that, and
Mhm.
I think the crazy thing is like I remember somebody saying this to me, and it can be related to like the military as well. Like, if there's no patients at a hospital, then you don't have a job.
Right.
But if you don't have a war, then you have no soldiers and you don't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, in order for people to make money to live and survive in this world, there unfortunately has to be these awful things that have to happen. And you know, I can totally see that after being in the service, you're all you want is nothing but, you know, the quiet time and the peace.
Yeah, I think you get a much better understanding of, it's just two sides of the political coin.
Yeah.
Even if there is people that were at fault, look, the people I went and fought in when I was deployed weren't the people that bombed the World Trade Centers. I went and I joined. They get bombed in 2001. I was joined in 2008. So it was years after the fact. They're long gone at this point. The conflict that I joined for is long over, because when I joined, Iraq was basically over. Yeah. Afghanistan was where like the new conflict was, and it wasn't even the initial conflict that we were fighting. It was a whole new one. It was just this concept of the war on terror that would never end, even though it has. But it's
just like how they said the war on drugs would
well,
never end.
I have things on that. But you forget I've been to Langley many times.
Yeah.
So that was a huge CIA ploy. But no, it's you realize when you're over there that like they're just people with families and they're just trying to survive. Like, this is a country that doesn't have like potable water within like 3 miles of a village, so you have to walk over 3 miles just to get like water to drink and like cook food with and everything else. So it's like that kind of struggle in just your daily life, and then you have this superpower come in and just start like ransacking your country in a sense of like, you know, like whether like people believe it was about the oil, whether people believe about like political agendas, or whatever the case was. Like, we went over there and the people that were actually doing the fighting had no ties to that. So we just see the ground level of like, we're people and they're people. And yeah, you can justify it in the beginning. Yeah. But when you're there for months and the days go on, it gets harder and harder to justify to yourself why you're doing that.
Oh yeah.
When the people that are pulling the strings are so disconnected from what's going on at the ground level that like they don't even see the repercussions of what they're doing. We turned a first world country. Iraq was one of the leading countries in that nation, and we turned it into a wasteland. Like, Baghdad is still on fire.
Rubble and ruin.
If you go to Baghdad, they're like capital city of a first world country in terms of like they were like leading in finances and everything else in the country. It is half the city is still on fire. Because of their like infrastructure and like gas lines and stuff that were underneath the roads that they had are on fire and won't go out. Like, that's how crazy it is, and people don't understand like there are long-term lasting effects of these countries that they just don't. So yeah, you see it from the ground level and you're like, this is pointless. You know, this. So you want
you're
the peace.
fighting. It feels like you're fighting a rich man's war.
Oh, absolutely.
And
oh yeah, exactly.
That can't be fucking right. Like, that's not how it should be. You shouldn't be making money off of the expense of other people's lives. Like, that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. So you have to find a new reason to fight. Yeah. So and for most of us that are over there, it transfers from like, for me it was like fighting for like revenge for, you know, because my uncle was in the second tower. So it's like fighting for revenge for something that I lost. And then it even for me, it was like, there's no point. I don't want the revenge anymore. This isn't, these people didn't do anything to me. I didn't like, so even me that had like a personal vendetta of why I went, got there and like was like, this isn't right. This isn't the revenge that I wanted. Right. You know what I mean? So you change your perspective, and for most military people, it becomes just protecting the guy to your left and right. That's all you care about. That's all it just boils down to simplicity of, you wake up, try not to die, try to make sure the guys to your left and right and the women to your left and right don't die, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up and do the same thing the next day, and it's just a repetition there. But there's a beauty in that simplicity, and I think you connect to it on a fundamental level, and you know that the enemy is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
they're just trying not to die. They were probably forced into their circumstances as well, and they just want to get back to their kids or their wife or their whatever the case is. They don't want to be there.
No.
They don't want to be fighting you in the middle of a hot-ass desert, That shit got up to 140 degrees. Wow. It was insane. I think that, the hottest it got while I was there was 132 or 133, but I was still, like, we would cook breakfast on the hoods of the Humvees.
Yep.
Like, every morning. It wasn't like a once in a, it was like every morning we'd, like, crack open some eggs. It was delicious, but, yeah.
That's insane.
But, like, it's just, you learn that it's, like, a fundamental, like, you're just there for each other.
Yeah.
So when you come back, that's what you bring with you is just, like, you just want to protect others.
Mm-hmm.
You want that peace. And that's where I think that stems from, is you've seen so much ugliness that you're just like, okay, I just want to try to bring a little bit more beauty into this world and try to protect others instead of taking.
When were you done?
Yeah, when you joined in 2008. And then
That's kind of a twofold question. I was, like, officially done in terms of paperwork in 2019, I think. Because I did 1 year. I did
graduated high school.
2018. I got off of active duty,
Okay.
and then they put me on for 1 more year. It's like a temporary contract for 1 year, which I didn't even think was like legal, but they somehow brushed that one under the rug, and they got me to extend for like a year. Not even in the Marine Corps, but in the National Guard, and it was as a trainer for like. Because while I was in Iraq doing embassy security, I was training with Delta Force and everything else. So I was learning like internal breaching and all kinds of like high speed stuff that you would use in like special forces, and cross training and all that stuff. So when I came back, I was kind of like a subject matter expert on that stuff. So they were like, we want you to train our trainers so they know what they're doing for like the next generation. And I was like, I 100% agree with that, because I feel like when people went in, like when I was first coming in, I didn't know shit. Like I thought I knew what I was doing. I was like, I'm a great shot. I know how to fight. I know what I'm doing. And then like I watched these Delta Force guys work, and I was like terrified of them. And they were like the nicest guys ever. It was insane. Their niceness actually terrified me more, because they were like so happy-go-lucky, but you knew they could end lives so quickly.
Yeah.
And it was just
in
like
so many ways.
like those are the kinds of people, like I'm not scared of like people in general, really, just like ever, but those kind of people terrify me because they're just so quiet and just like nice. But then underneath there's like this monster that is like probably one of the most lethal killers on this planet, and it's just terrifying. But and I got to learn from them like firsthand, so I know what they're capable of, and I learned some of that knowledge, but there was no way you could even approach that, because they did it day in and they lived it, and I just trained maybe like once or twice a week. But I came back and I spread that knowledge into the National Guard guys that were coming in, and I thought it was a good thing. And that was while we were going to school here. My first year here, I was actually doubling up, and I was going down to the Cape.
I remember that.
Yes.
I was going down to the Cape almost every weekend, and it was to train up their trainers. So.
You want to come to the dining hall? No, I'm going to the Cape.
No, I'm going.
Yeah, I gotta go to the Cape, and
Sorry,
like
I
half the
can't
time
go
I
to rehearsal tonight. I have to go. Sorry, I can't go to the Cape tonight. I have Radium Girls rehearsal.
No, but I sometimes I would have to do rehearsal until 11 at night, and then I would go home, sleep for like 2 hours, and I would have to be at the Cape by like 3:30 in the morning.
Oh,
Wow.
And I would go down and I would be at the Cape at 3:30 in the morning, and I would just be like dead. And then I'd be there for 3 days, and I would come back, and I would get off at like 8 o'clock at night on the Sunday, and I would come back, and I would be here for like an 8 a.m. at Kozar's on Monday.
Wow.
And I would just be like, oh my God, this is exhausting. I was like, so then when they asked me to like, hey, do you want to re-up again and kind of do this for a couple more years? No, like, we just want you to stay here and do this until your contract's done for 20, and then you can retire. And I was like, no. And I have to say, in terms of like military jobs, it was a really skate job. I was just teaching stuff and then watching them try to reteach that to new people. So it wasn't like I was actually doing a lot. It was just more like an oversight, like, let's see if they're actually teaching properly. It's like me teaching professors how to teach students, and then being at the top and seeing like, okay, they're doing a decent job teaching the students. That was my gig there. So I wasn't doing much, but it was just, I had to be there, and being present there was taking me away from this so much. And I was like, if I'm going to be successful as an actor, I have to go both feet in on acting. I can't keep a toe in the military world and try to get a pension. I can't, I can't live in two different worlds like that. It just doesn't work. But like when I was like mentally done, when I was mentally just over the military and was like, that was like probably like 2017. I was still serving in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I just woke up one day and I remember just sitting on the edge of the bed and I just could not, I didn't have the motivation to even like stand up. I was just staring at the ground and it was like, what am I doing with my life? And like at the time my like dresser was like right next to my bed and there was like a mirror right there and I just remember like looking up into the mirror and being like, I'm done. And then I went in. Can
you make that decision? Like
you can.
Because I know like obviously desertion is like a one thing.
Yeah, like, desertion and AWOL and stuff. It's
what's the difference between like ending your contract versus making the decision to leave versus desertion?
Or did you have to wait a period of time after you chose that you were mentally done?
And
you were in a contract.
Mentally you were done in 2017, but you weren't done until 2019.
Right.
Oh.
And then you re-upped.
So, and that's my contract was up in 2018. My contract ended in 2018. They were pleading with me to re-enlist. They wanted me to go back out on embassy security, so I was going to go back out for embassy security as a detachment commander and go back to Iraq. And they were like pleading with me to re-enlist and go out because of my specialties. And I was just like, I can't. I don't think I'm gonna make it another round. So I gotta get out. And it was like my body was beaten down. I already had multiple surgeries done for like reconstructive surgeries. It was just mentally, physically, like my soul was just tired. And I know people when you tell somebody like my soul is tired, anybody that's been through any kind of like, like trauma, like house fires or like they lose a parent when they're young or anything, when you say my soul is tired, it resonates so deeply. You just know. When somebody says I'm tired, you're like, oh yeah, I know, we're all tired. When they say like, no, like my soul is fucking tired, and it's just like
the fiber of my is exhausted.
Is done. It just can't take anymore, and that's what the sergeant major pulled me in, and that's what I said. I was like, sergeant major, my soul can't take anymore of this, and he was like, get out. So I was like, all right. So I ended that. I rode that contract out to the end of it. And then that's when they asked me to come up here, and they were like, well, you're going to Mass. Do you want to do this side gig for the reserves? So it'll be like on weekends. And I was like, I guess. Because I do agree with kind of like passing on your knowledge. So that way the next generation doesn't make the same freaking mistakes
Plus,
that you
if
make.
they were paying.
Which they were.
Money goes.
They were paying. Yeah. So I wasn't too distraught about it. Like, oh, darn, I get to go stand there. And
I mean, from here to the Cape.
And that, I gotta say, sucks. Like, do any of you eat Lunchables still?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I know. It's like, so the game changer is, those dilly pickle packs?
Yeah, like the big pickle.
No, not the big pickle. It's like the bites. I think it is called bites.
Pickle bites?
Yeah, it's like pickle bites, and they got like spicy ones, and it's like hot bites, and then they got like the regular bites, the dilly bites. So it's like little pouches, and it's like a cut up dill pickle. They're actually good, like, but they have like hot bites. They have sassy bites, which is like a sweet, spicy one. That one's new. I didn't really like it though. I thought it was too sweet. It's like a sweet pickle that they just threw like pepper flakes on. I don't know. It just wasn't.
New segment, pickle reviews with Brad.
It just wasn't. It just wasn't for me.
Is it like
but
snap?
Yes, the snap. Yep. So you get the spicy snap.
Dilly bites.
Or if you're not like a spicy person, you can just get the regular ones.
Bites.
Yep. Sassy bites. They got a couple of them.
Sassy bites, yeah.
I wasn't a fan of the sassy bites though. Anyways, you get the Lunchables, and you get the brown mustard, like the brown.
Mustard.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get brown mustard. You put that on top of the cracker.
Oh,
which like the ham ones, the turkey ones, whichever one you want. It doesn't really work with the pizza ones. That's just you're building a little pizza. You can't ruin the pizza. But no, so you make your little stack, and in between the cracker and like the cheese or the meat, you put a little bit of that Dijon mustard, and then you pop a pickle piece right on top of that, and it is a game changer.
Wow.
And I learned that from a buddy of mine that was actually out at the Cape at that time, and he was one of the people I was training.
Mm-hmm.
Small freaking world. We went to high school together.
No
Whoa.
way.
He was in the grade above me,
Oh, gotcha.
and then I was in charge of him, so it was kind of ironic.
I
That's
love
funny.
it. That's
But,
so funny.
I came in and he was like, Brad, and I was like, Joe, what are you doing here? And he was like,
Mr.
what are you doing here? He's like, you're a staff sergeant? I was like,
Yeah, that's Mr.
You're
Brad
here
to
to
you.
teach me?
I was like, yeah, I'm your new
Are you
staff in
shitting
CYC. And but like, I mean, we chit-chatted with our stories and stuff. He had gone into he was a firefighter, so he was doing reserves, but he was a firefighter. So like, I completely
Jesus
respect
Christ.
that. That's such a difficult job. I respect
Yeah.
those guys so much. I have so many friends that are firefighters that just the shit that they go through. It's like like police deal with people, but like they're dealing with like fire on a
Big
daily
fires.
like
Buildings
things
collapsing
things
on them.
yeah, like collapsing buildings, fires, like
With
natural
how often
disasters.
this fire department is
Oh my
operating,
God, yeah.
God can only imagine. What
The
those-
It's
local
and it's just
Franklin
like
FPV
sorry, I
guys.
plugged my TV in where the microwave was and it
That's-
blew the outlet.
that
Like
must be so
just
frustrating.
that like as a firefighter or like the daisy chaining stuff they do at work,
That
like
must be so frustrating.
they're looking at people like, why do you hate me? Why do you want to put me through trauma?
Yeah.
Like, but
Oh my
no.
God.
So that's like I went out there, but that's where I discovered he taught me that little Lunchable trick.
Really?
So if I had never gone down there to the Cape, I wouldn't know that. So it's like,
So if you gained one thing from going to the Cape, it was the Lunchable
that.
trick.
listen, don't knock that Lunchable trick.
Dude,
It's
I'm gonna try
You
it.
gotta
I'll
try
let you
it.
know. I'm gonna let you know.
Now I have a question because you brought up Lunchables. I want to ask about the big kid Lunchables, the MREs.
Yeah.
How were those?
What was your favorite? What was the best and
And the
worst,
worst
MRE
ones,
you
yeah.
ever had?
oh,
Good segue, Bobby.
Thank you.
King of
that was
segue.
good. That was very
Segway
nice.
King.
Very nice. Very nice.
That sigh that you did.
Yeah.
Well,
that was
you know,
the
MREs
vegetarian omelet
aren't
coming out
like-
of my soul.
The vegetarian
God.
omelet.
I've only whenever I see like,
It's-
a TikTok of the MREs pop up, I'm like,
I want to try one.
I'm like,
I'm so
There
I
are
would-
some.
I
There
would.
are some that are
I'm
like
so
fire.
curious.
There are some that are fire. The more
"Oh, they're
recent.
fire." I need to know. And where
Buffalo
can I,
chicken.
Where can I buy them?
Buffalo. It's literally white chicken chunks with buffalo sauce is what it's called.
Yep.
And you're like, that sounds disgusting, but it's actually really good.
Yeah.
And then they have cheese spread,
Oh.
and it's not like you have to knead it
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's like a brick.
Yep.
So you have to knead it into like soft cheese, but they do have like a heater thing that you
Yeah.
you're not allowed to use because they smell to high heaven. You can smell them from like 2 miles away because it's just so
way.
potent. The heating packs,
Oh,
at least
like
in the
that.
Marines,
To add water.
and
Yeah.
it was
Up.
funny because that was one of the things that I always had to tell the freaking the trainers and the new people, but even the trainers like my buddy Joe and stuff, we'd be doing MREs because we'd be training in the field for that weekend or whatever, and they'd all be heating up their MREs, and it's like middle of the day, lunchtime, whatever the case is.
a
But
bunch of them all at once. must
but they're
reek.
they're all heating them up, and they smell because it's a chemical that when you add water
Yeah.
to it, it
heats up.
heats up to like
It's an exothermic
300
reaction.
degrees. So that exothermic reaction has a smell
Yeah.
that is really, really it's like melting
I never
plastic.
thought about that.
It's like
Oh.
melting
I
plastic.
never knew what made that water
Me
get
neither-
hot.
I didn't question it.
It
Yeah,
is-
I
it
also
is-
didn't question it. I was like,
It is
oh,
extremely toxic stuff,
Oh my
and
God.
it's
I was
and
like,
it's
it's just some cool
Yeah.
military trick they got going on.
yeah, no, they just put some chemicals in a bag, and they're like, all right, you throw it in there, and it creates an exothermic reaction that'll kill you if you inhale it. So don't do that.
And then you have to eat the contents of it.
Well, it's separate from like
I
the content
know,
of it, but like
it's
yeah.
like, why put it that close? you
Right.
know?
Well, they don't tell you. You kind of learn later on. They're like, "Oh, that's really toxic," and they're like, "Yeah, don't inhale that." And they're like, "I've been inhaling it for
I've
like
been
3
inhaling it
years."
for years.
They like keep it a secret from you on purpose, I think. But no, like, I remember being in like basic infantry training when I was because right after when all Marines go to like basic infantry
Yep.
training
Yep.
for at least a month. Infantry then goes on to do it for another 2 months. But every Marine goes through at least a month of it. And I remember being in foxholes at like 18 degrees out in February
Ooh.
in Virginia, and I'm just like
Oh.
like, freezing. And
Oh,
you know,
God.
I'm like, I go to heat up my meal or heat up like a cup of whatever for coffee, and I was heating it up, and the instructor came by and just booted my cup of coffee across the woods, and then kicked me in the face.
Oh.
And I was like, what is going on right now? And he was like, don't you ever heat something like that up again. He's like, I could smell that from on the bottom of the hill. And I was like, oh my God.
You
I didn't
came
even...
all the way over here.
He's like, you just gave away this entire hill's position because you wanted a hot cup of coffee.
Shit.
He's like, you just killed this entire hill.
I didn't
And I
even
was
think
like,
about that.
whoa. And he's like, now clean your face up and like stain your post. And I was like, yep. So I like wiped the blood off my face. But it was like a hard, they needed, he was like, you gotta remember, these were the guys that served at the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
And then they were training us. So they were coming from like Fallujah
Yeah.
and Ramadi, like with some of the bloodiest battles. And there's little old me trying to heat up a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And he's like, you just killed 10 of my friends. And like PTSD kicks in and he kicks me in the
Oh,
face. And I'm just like,
man.
and he's like, don't you ever. But it's in like that like tough love thing. He's
Yeah.
trying to like help me. He's like, you will kill yourself and everybody around you if you do that. And it was like, I am so sorry. I don't like.
All you wanted was a hot cup
All
of
you
coffee.
wanted was
I just wanted some hot coffee. But no, and it's like you just learn like, okay, so if you're gonna do coffee, you take the packet of coffee grounds and you dip it like you would like tobacco, and your body just absorbs the caffeine through your lip.
That's crazy.
Damn.
That's crazy.
And if you want to absorb it faster, they literally would tell you like, bite the
Yep.
Yeah,
the
chew on
lining
it.
of your cheek,
Yeah.
so it rips it open a bit, and then shove it in there where the cut is, and it'll like
Yeah.
the caffeine goes straight in your
Bloodstream,
yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's hardcore.
So- Yeah, so those were like the lessons that I learned all early on. Yeah, but the MREs, there are really good ones. You got like,
I got it pulled up on Amazon right now.
yeah, there's literally one that just has tuna. It's bumblebee tuna inside of it.
There's a
You open it and it's a pack of bumblebee tuna and then like some crackers, and you're like,
cracker,
this
yeah.
is not enough.
a
It's
cracker and the
we
cheese
used to call it the diet MRE because there like was not enough.
Yeah.
All the other MREs had like 3,000 calories in them, and that one had like 1,200. And you were like, I'm not on a diet. Why is it?
ridiculous.
It's like so much less. But they're
You
like,
can get a 3-pack for $33.
No shit.
Yep.
yeah,
A
and it's
12-pack for
like
$112.
they are like, if it was feasible and it was on sale or something, I would totally see myself buying like a box of MREs for like emergency rations because they last for like I remember eating some that like the packaging said like 1990 whatever, and I was like,
Oh
why
my
am I eating this?
God.
But it was still perfectly good. I was like, how
Yeah.
did they preserve this?
Man, I was gonna leave like 10 minutes ago, but these stories.
But no, I gotta say my favorite one of all time was the spaghetti with meat sauce, and it
No
was literally just
way.
spaghettis and meatballs in a pouch.
No way.
Because they don't have like cans and stuff anymore.
Yeah.
They got rid of that
Yeah.
stuff. But it's all in like little plastic pouches that you rip open.
Yep.
And it was spaghettis with meat sauce, and it had a flatbread in there
Oh.
with bacon jalapeno cheese spread.
Whoa.
Yep. And then there was spicy Cheez-Its, and which were like more spicy than the spicy Cheez-Its you get in the store.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
But in like a good way.
I gotta get my hands
They were,
on some MRE
MREs.
Cheez-Its.
The MRE spicy Cheez-Its are, oh my god, they are better than like, they're the best Cheez-Its I've ever had. Anyways, they had that, and then the kicker on all of it was a blueberry cherry cobbler,
Oh, I've heard about the cobbler.
I've heard about that cobbler.
Holy shit.
and that I would heat up.
Yeah.
I would like dig a hole to China and like put the heater in there and like cover it and come back 3 days later and be like, my blueberry cherry cobbler is ready. But like, it was so good. I remember that was like the only thing I looked forward to when I was doing the when the tsunami hit Japan in 2011.
Yeah.
Right.
I was part of that response.
My grandfather almost got caught in that, but his plane took off right before it like rushed in.
Yeah, it was a rough scene, so I won't get into details. But like, cleaning that up, it was very demoralizing, and it was like hard. And my buddies knew that like that was my favorite MRE, so they would pull it out of every single box and keep it for me. Yeah. So it was nice, and even like the local Japanese like air defense force that we were working with knew like what your favorite meals were. Or, like we were all just trying to keep each other going through it. So like we would trade with the local Japanese like Defense Air Force for like what they had for their like because they would have like sushi or like whatever the case is, and it was like because their meals were like it was still kind of like the canned version of
They
it
were
and
also
everything else,
like,
but like
home, right? Like,
yeah.
Because I mean, if they're from Japan, you guys were based in Japan.
But they were pulling them from the defense force, so they could have been from like Hokkaido up in the northern region, or like Shikoku down in the south.
Yeah.
And this was like just north of Tokyo, so it was like not the region they're from. So they're still traveling away from their family. You can't eat any of the food that was in the stores in the area because when the wave hit, it like burst through the sewer systems and everything else, and there was like sewage on everything. And there was just, like, dead animal carcasses everywhere because the animals couldn't get away from it. So, like, it was just, like, a 6-inch layer of just, like, gunk. Like, the oil got washed out of the cars. Oh my God. So it was, like, oil and sewage and everything. And it was just, like, a 6-inch layer of just, like, sludge on everything. And then, like, the stores, you got to remember, there was radiation being spit out. So, like, everything's irradiated. So they're, like, don't eat any of the food. Don't touch anything you don't have to touch. Like, it was, like, very, like, hands-off environment. Like, you couldn't take anything with you. Like, one of the Marines was, like, trying to get trophies because he was an idiot. He was young. But, like, and it was, like, dude, not the time or the place. But, like, he was just trying to get something as, like, a memorabilia of, like, what he was doing, which is fine. But, like, it just, like, you can't take anything. And then when we went to go leave, they burned all of our stuff anyways because it was, like, irradiated. So they took our clothes, they took our phones, they took everything and, like, melted it into, like, ash. Because it was all had radiation exposure. So, like,
it makes sense, but that's insane.
Expose, like, civilians.
Yeah, if you take your phone back to the base and you're using your phone, you're not only re-exposing yourself, but you're exposing everybody else. If it touches your room, now your room's radiated. Like, it's crazy. It's like trying to contain, like, a deadly virus.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Queuing now, savvy on into COVID. No. But, no, but it was insane.
At least you were done for that.
Yeah. No, it's my buddy from back home that's still in. He's a pilot for the National Guard.
Currently?
Yeah, he's a helicopter pilot for the National Guard, and for Rhode Island, and he was one of the lead medical pilots for COVID. So he was like medevacing people to Boston. He was medevacing people like all the way to like Chicago to like because they didn't have space or whatever. Like he was one of the people like shuttling people around. So he was like direct exposure to like all the worst cases. Yeah, it's like people don't think about it. It was like, well, if you don't have any room at this hospital, they literally like stabilized you and then flew you to like Texas to a hospital because they didn't have room. It was like more insane than people thought. But
wow.
Yeah, he was on the forefront of that, and then like when that settled down, he was like flying like the vaccine all over the place. So it was like filling the helicopter up with like boxes and boxes of vaccines, and just trying to get it to like rural areas that like weren't close to the cities. So,
shit. Wow,
must have been crazy.
Yeah, he was messaging me like every other night, like, dude, it's wild, like, because he knew I would like understand like the chaos of it all. But.
That's so crazy. Yeah, and so you did your service in the military, and you did all that you did, and then where was it after that you decided, I know what I'm doing, acting school? Because
I actually know this story.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's told you. I think I know.
I don't think I've heard it.
It's my origin story.
Yes.
And I say that because Chris Evans was involved in it, and he's Captain America, so I call it my origin story.
Oh my
but
God.
It's not as fascinating. It's kind of straightforward. But I got out. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I used to be a visual artist, a painter like yourself.
Yes.
I did sculpting. I did all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
I actually did a lot of clay stuff, clay sculpting. So if you ever want to get into that,
I do. I was just gonna say I would love to get.
I can
clay.
totally teach you the tricks of the trade because I love doing sculpture stuff. I used to make a lot of unethical products for Mary Jane and stuff. That's it's legal now, but in the 90s or in the early 2000s when I was in high school, it wasn't kosher.
Right.
So we're all making bongs, and the professor's like, "Stop making!" Like literally, every student would put their thing in the kiln, and it would come. They would just. Everything was like a disguised bong. So like, she'd be like, "These are so beautiful," and then she would like look closer, and there was like holes that were like hidden. I remember my favorite one. I made like this little like mushroom dude that was sitting on a leaf.
No way.
And it was literally like this mushroom wizard dude, and like the mushroom top was his wizard hat, and it like curled. and then he had like this wizard cane, and the wizard cane itself was
No way.
was the pipe portion that you would like smoke
Yeah.
from, and his
The
belly
stem.
button was like the.
The thumb hole.
Yeah, it was the thumb hole.
That is hilarious.
And his head came off completely, and you could like fill it. So it was a bonk, so you could fill it with water.
Yeah.
And then his hat came off, and you could fill his head with the weed.
Oh my god.
It was one of my best inventions. And then my dad stole it because my dad is a fucking pothead. So, but yeah, if you want to get into that.
I need a picture.
So I was an artist, and
Right.
I did all that kind of stuff before going into the military and stuff. That was one of my outlets. And then I went into the military and kind of like lost my artistic self.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things I kind of regretted was like I stopped painting. That's why, But I got out and I was like, what do I want to do to like reinvent myself as an artistic person? I feel like I need to find that part of myself again because all artists know like you have to do something to express yourself artistically. You just feel empty.
If you don't keep
You get this like
man,
really empty pit inside of you. Like I have
it
to.
feels wrong.
COVID, dude.
Yeah, that's why it was so
shut
hard for.
everybody down.
That's why it was so hard for creative people. It was like,
And trying to do acting classes over Zoom.
Horrible.
listen, we did okay. We did
what we could do.
Did our best.
Yeah.
And that's all anyone can ask
I
for.
did my best. There's a little Dane Cook comedy.
Mhm.
Just flashing back to that, but he's like sometimes you just need to ugly cry. He's like,
So true,
hello.
so
Oh yeah.
He's like, I did my best.
I'm
You
with
just
that.
keep repeating a phrase like something
Mhm.
stupid, like I did my best.
Mhm.
But no, so I got out and I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do. I'm gonna go for the surefire thing that I know I can make money for right now,
Mhm.
which was private security. So I went up into the Boston area, and they were like, yes, absolutely, you're way overqualified. Let's get you a job.
Yep.
And they got me a job as the head of security for Mount Ida College up in Newton. So I was the head of security for the college. That's why I laugh when campus safety here tries to get on my
Yeah.
get on my ass about stuff, and I'm like, mall cops, shut the fuck up.
Yes. Yes, Mom.
And I completely called them out on regulations and everything
Yeah.
else. The Cleary Act with the whole like sexual assault being like very open and like available for everybody to see, and how it needs to be updated at least once a week. And like how they haven't done any of that, and I'm like, "Where's your Cleary Act posters? Where's this? Where's that?" And they kind of like get wide-eyed, and I'm like, "Yeah, I know everything. You have nothing on me. Shut up." And they're just like, "Oh no!" So they back down every time. But I was the head of security, and I was still trying to figure myself out. I was like, maybe I'll go back overseas as a private contractor and do some work in Iraq again, just to make money. So at least I don't have to like I can figure myself out without having to worry about finances. And then I got the notice from the college that defending Jacob, which was like, it was a story about the DA, and his son's a serial killer, and it happened in Newton, and it was a real story, and they wanted to be as accurate as possible. And his son went to Mount Ida College when it was a college, so they filmed a bunch of it on Mount Ida College. They recreated like the kindergarten school classrooms on the college.
Really?
They had to like rebuild like some of the buildings
Yep.
to like fit that stuff. But because I was a head of security, I had to be around the actors all the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, I got to chit chat with Chris Evans a couple times, but he's goofy. He's always pulling pranks on people behind.
No way.
They
so
to
He's
the
a
point
goofy
to the
goober.
point where like production's like, Chris, stop.
Hey, please do your job.
It's like during filming, and it's like not his scene. So it's not his scene, so he'll be in the background like making faces at the other actors
Oh
and
my
shit.
God.
Like he needs to chill
Chris
sometimes.
Evans
But
is
like
a menace.
he is a fantastic human being. He's just like goofy, super nice guy. Like he'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So it
Defending-
was really nice getting to
Yeah.
meet him. But like the other actors and actresses, which were more like the like B level. So
Yep.
they're not like Hollywood A-listers, but they're still like known
Yeah.
actors. They're like B level. And I was chit-chatting with them a lot more than Chris Evans, and I was like asking way too many questions to them, like, what's your life like? What do you do as a schedule? What's this? What's that? How'd you get where you are? Like the things you're asking me now, but I was doing this to them,
Yep.
not for a podcast. And they were like, dude, enough. Like
please stop asking.
they were like, we're busy, stop. And I was like, all right. And they're like, well, you seem really interested. Why don't you just go be an actor? And I was like, no, I don't have time for that. And I was just doing that thing where you just shrug it off, like, that's not me. Nobody, I'm like almost 30.
Yep.
Nobody just becomes an actor at like almost 30, and they're like, yes, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
well,
actually
no.
happens often.
So I just kept justifying why I shouldn't do it, and they were like, here, one of the actors called Boston Casting and was like, hey, you have a course coming up, right? That's
Yeah.
like an acting class. And they were like, yeah, we have a couple spots. He was like, I got a buddy that wants to do it. Hold a spot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't have money for it. Da, da, da. It was like a $700 course. And he
Yeah.
was like, don't worry about the money. Just go to the class.
Whoa.
Take it. It's like an intro level thing. They're
Yeah.
going to teach you the fundamentals. Let you just be goofy and crazy.
Yeah.
If you like it, you like it. If you don't, go to one and don't go. I don't
Yeah.
care. He's like, it's no sweat off mine. He's
Oh,
like,
that's
I'm
so
not
nice.
paying for it. You're not paying for it. It's just
Yeah.
free. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I have nothing to lose. So I
Mhm.
went to it. It was 7 to 10 p.m. on Wednesdays, and it
Yeah.
was great. I loved it. Everything about it. The instructors, Amanda and Art Hennessy, were amazing.
Mhm.
Really got down to like the level of like what kind of actor you're trying to be, what's your branding you wanting. Like they went to the whole night. Like what do you
Yeah.
want to do for headshots? They gave us all of those materials like right off the bat.
Oh,
like,
that's
hey,
awesome.
here's your contacts for going to headshots. They're some of the
Mhm.
best in the industry in Boston right now. They can hook you up.
Mhm.
Drop our names. They'll give you a discount. Da 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 da.
Nice.
So I did all that, and then I took 2 more courses with them to really. It was like intermediate acting, and then like
Mhm.
scene study level, like really digging into it. And they were like, "Well, we can't really provide anything else for you at this point.
Mhm.
You should go to college and learn theater because
Yeah.
they were teaching me more of the film side of things. But they're
Yeah.
like, you should go to college for theater and get like a good theater background
Mm.
underneath you. That'll make you a really strong actor." And I was like, "No, I don't. It's."
I'm not sure.
I'm not really about the whole education, lookout. I'm just gonna go and be an actor and see what I can. And they were like, it's free.
It'd be stupid if you didn't take advantage.
Right. So it's like it's free. What do you have to lose? And I was like, and they're like, just if you don't like it, you can always just stop at any
Right.
time. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm always doing this. I'm always trying to justify why I shouldn't do it when there's no negatives to this. I'm not losing any money. I'm not just do it. What do I have to lose? So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up starting to look for colleges for acting and everything else. And then Dean was close by. I didn't even know about Dean. I was searching everywhere, and I didn't know Dean was like right next to Cumberland because that's where I live now in Rhode Island. And I didn't know that Dean was like 20 minutes away. And my roommate at the time was like, Dean College is like right there, and they have like a good like
Good
theater
theater
program like for around here. And I was like, okay, let me go and like research it and see what it's about. And it had the best like student to teacher ratio that I had seen.
Yes.
And when I started investigating it more,
We have a good.
yeah, there's
student-to-teacher ratio.
such a small student to teacher ratio that like every other college that I was looking at was at least like 20 something
1
to 30
20.
something. Yeah, it's like 1 to 20, 1 to 30.
Yeah.
And Dean's average was like 1 to 12.
1 to 12.
Yeah, and it was extremely low. And like
Very
some of the
good.
classes that I've taken here has been like 1 to 6.
Yep.
And you're like, this is insane. Because you're literally getting, for an hour and a half, you're getting like 15 to 20 minutes of personal catered experience
Oh, yeah.
every class. And that's like unheard of in like the university
in
level.
any college
Right.
setting, actually.
Because most you just walk in, they throw the information at you, and you have to basically teach yourself. Because
Giant
it's just, you
lecture
don't have to.
halls,
Yeah.
40, 50 people.
And I was just like, that's what I was trying to
Terrified
avoid.
of.
It's not even that I was like terrified. It's
I
just
was.
like,
I was terrified.
I was terrified of it.
it was just, I knew that I wasn't going to appreciate that style of learning.
Yeah.
So I wanted a small teacher to student teacher ratio. The other place that I was actually considering was it was like an all female like nursing school in LA that had a theater program connected to it, but it wasn't like one of their major things.
Oh,
So it wasn't even like this college is known for theater, it's known for nursing. And it was like 12 girls to 1 guy, like student body ratio.
Yep.
So it was like insane. Like, so like I like sent them an email, and they were like, "Why would you want to come here?" And they're like, "Are you trying to be a nurse?" And I was like, "Well, no, I know it's like medicine and everything else because I was gonna go into sports medicine with my history and like personal training and stuff." But I was like, I'm trying to pursue acting now, and they're like, "Well, we have theater, but it's not like a big program." So I was on the verge of flying out, and then that's when my roommate was like, "Check out Dean," and I was like, "You know what? Let me do that before I buy a ticket to
Yeah.
LA."
We're glad you did.
Right.
I'm so glad.
And here we are. I learned
Yeah.
about Lunchables and
But
but
it's so crazy that it was defending Jacob that like got you to take the step towards acting.
Yeah.
Because who else was in defending Jacob? Was Aaron
Our professor.
Andrade,
Was he?
who
Yep.
was the
He was
director of Radium Girls as well.
Yeah.
In the first show.
And that's when I first came into the class,
Full
I looked
circle.
at him and he looked at me, and we both kind of did a,
That's
because we recognized each other. And after the class, I went right up to him and I was like, "Hey, I'm Brad," because he was like, "If you
Yeah.
need information, let me know." Da 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 da. You can even say after this one class, and that's when he gave his spiel about like, I'm more of a film and TV actor, but I'm here to teach you the basics. If you're wanting to learn about musical theater and theater in general, I can give you that information, but this is my expertise. And I can just email me. I can get you all kinds of contact information and everything else. And I was like, yes. So I immediately went up and was like, I love all that information, but I have a question for you. And I was like,
Were you also?
did you ever do any work up in the Newton area? And he was like, yeah, I just did Defending Jacob. And I was like, cool, on Mount Ida campus? And he was like, yeah, wait a minute. And he was like,
You were the head security.
he was like, you're the security guy. and I was like, yeah, I am. And he goes, so you're not doing that anymore? And I was like, no.
So that fell through.
So that's.
I was like, yeah, no, I got fired, man. And he was like, I was like, no, I'm kidding. I didn't. Because you got to fuck with people, you know?
Oh yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, there was a scandal with one of the students.
Oh
and and he was like, no way. And I let him on. But I was like, no, I'm totally kidding. He goes, man, you had me going. Because he was also military. He did, 5 years in the Army.
No shit.
Really?
Yep. So
He never mentioned
He
that
never
in our acting
no,
class.
he had his differences with the military.
Understood.
Yeah.
So, unlike our other professor, Jim Beauregard, who he did his time, but he was always an artistic person as well.
Oh yeah.
He was in theater while he was in the military.
Yeah.
He was never truly in the military because he always wanted to be back in theater.
Served, he did, but he was never. I don't think he was.
He never did combat service.
No.
No.
Nothing,
He did his
nothing,
time, and
right.
he was active duty, and he would.
Mhm. But every time he was home, or
He would take
wasn't-
leave. He would save up his leave days.
Yep. And
to
he
come
would
home and do
shows
theater.
and do shows. Yep.
Yeah. And he literally saved all of his vacations, all of his money, so that way he could come home and do
Yep.
theater. Because he knew he was just an artist at heart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Theater, and I've had this conversation with him. That for people like us, theater isn't just something we do for fun. It is. It's something that we need to do to fulfill ourselves deep down in our hearts.
Yeah.
And I fully understood that when he was even when I was in the service, I would, whenever I had the time, I would come back and still do theater.
Mhm.
And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
And it's
Live, eat, breathe.
reconnecting with my artistic self. I've seen it over it's because it's building on me again, and it's getting deeper ingrained into me again. And I mean, I know you can attest to this because we discussed when we got back from that COVID summer and everything else, and you were like, dude, it was rough with me. I was depressed. And we had that chat, and I was like, dude, I was as well. Look, I wasn't involved in anything, and I was just grinding away at work.
Yeah.
And I stumped into so deep of a depression because because I do work still with the military, but it's as a contractor, and it's QC work where I'm inspecting sonar equipment, and it's more just a side gig that I do to get money. That's very technical thing.
Yeah.
But that was all I was doing, and I felt like I was falling back into the military world, and it got me so depressed because I've done so much to get away from that world and reinvent myself again as an artist. So it was so depressing. And so when you came up and you were like, man, I got to be honest, it's good seeing you. I missed you a lot, and I was so depressed that there was nobody to talk to and everything else. And I was like, dude, I am 20 minutes away from where you live. Don't you ever?
Yeah.
I was like, we literally live 20 minutes away from each other.
I vividly remember having that conversation too, and it was I think the big part about it was it was good to know that I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
And that everybody was
Somebody-
going through it, even though we had to deal with our own personal struggles with it. It was comforting knowing that, especially getting back on campus, and it was everything was so weird. It was we had just been home for months, and now
For too long.
and now we're all of a sudden back.
Yep.
It was
Yeah.
shocking.
It was a shock.
Yeah.
Culture shock.
And I will say that culture shock and that depression swing that you feel is very much a military thing as well.
Yeah.
When you're away from family and you're away from everything you know, and you're trying to like just go through the motions of it, and it's just like shit that you don't want to do. And then you get back and you're with your friends again and everything else, and you just have this kind of like shell shock moment of just like, I'm back, I'm not the same now.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. And I think you've even asked me before, like, what's the hardest part about getting out of the military? And I was like, it's realizing that you're not the same person, and everybody you know, your friends, your family, they all think you are the same person still.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this image of you when you left
Mm-hmm.
of like whoever you were, this happy-go-lucky, like, you know, the class clown or whatever, like the, you know, the loving son or whatever, and you're a completely different human being now, and you've seen so many things, and to come back and try, like, you can't even justify to them or try to explain to them. You just have to try to pretend that you're still that old person, because they won't ever see you as anybody else. Yeah. They already have a perceived notion of who you are. So, like, even in the short amount of time, not that I'm belittling COVID, but, like, even in the short amount of time that COVID was, it changed everybody. Yeah. Because everybody had this, like, introspective reflection of themselves and, like, who they are and who they want to be and, like, what is life and, like, what's it all mean and why am I doing it? Mm-hmm. And then they came back and they look at their friends and they're like, well, are they my friend? Or, Yep. So, and it's like if you scale that up to, like, 100, that's the transition out of the military. And I think that's why the suicide rates are so high, is because they get back and they just can't deal with that adjustment. It's not even the shit that they went through. It's the adjustment on the back end and just, like, not being able to find a way forward. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brad, for taking the time to be here with us on Shooting the Shit.
And for sharing some
awesome
stories and some the realities.
Like we said, you've done a lot, and, you know, at least for me, I look up to you.
Oh my God, yes.
We adore you. We think you're, like, the coolest guy. So
that means a lot. Even through through my dad jokes.
So especially the dad jokes. We love the dad jokes. Mm-hmm. But to end us off, do you have any last bits of advice for our listeners?
Don't take life so seriously. So, literally just go do what you want to do. Know that at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just like, don't fret about the bills as much. Don't make your whole life about making money and trying to please people and trying to make this image that, like, people want. And I know it's, like, cliche stuff that everyone says, but it's like, the more you experience, the more you realize that, like, you are your own experiences. Mm-hmm. Like, no single person is the same. So trying to be the same as others and trying to, like, live their truth is never going to work. Mm-hmm. So just live your own. And if it's wrong, fuck it. It's wrong. Just do it. I mean, like, as long as you're not, like, committing crimes and, like,
right.
But I mean, if you want to steal a pack of gum, fucking steal a pack of gum. But like
Bradley Robinson does not endorse thievery.
No.
No, but just live your truth. Do what you need to do for your happiness. If that means leaving your family and going out on an adventure on your own, then pull up your roots and leave. Mm-hmm. If it means dropping your friend group because they're too much drama and you need to re-find yourself alone, then go be alone for a couple months and refigure yourself out and then come back. You got to do what you have to do for you. Yeah. And find the little joys in life, like Lunchables with pickles on top.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go and try that.
Yeah. It's to perfectly sum that up, be you, be bold, Beyonce.
Thank you, Robbie. I appreciate that.
Thank you all for listening to the latest episode.
Happy belated Veterans Day.
Yes.
To all of our veterans out there.
Thank you for everything.
Like Brad and our lovely professor, Jim Bogard, and every other veteran out there. We really appreciate everything that you guys do. And also, our boys over at Sue's Garage have just released their newest EP.
Yes, they did.
Please give it a listen. Their link is in our Instagram, and you can check them out on Spotify and Instagram as well. We look forward to listening to it.
Hell yeah, go give it a listen.
Brad, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed.
Snaps.
We'll have to get you on again at some point, maybe for season 2.
Ooh, yeah.
And on that note, this is Beefy,
And this is Bobby.
and this is Shooting the Shit with Beefy and Bobbie.